The arrival of the eccentric stranger. The golden chandelier cast dancing shadows across the marble floor of the Grand Palace Hotel as the evening shift settled into their routine. Roberto Martinez, the night manager, straightened his burgundy tie and checked his watch. 10:30 p.m., and the lobby was nearly empty except for a few guests reading newspapers in the leather armchairs. The automatic doors whooshed open, letting in a gust of cold October air. A man stumbled inside, his clothes wrinkled and his hair disheveled. His faded blue jacket had seen better days, and his scuffed shoes squeaked against the polished floor. He clutched a worn leather bag against his chest and looked around with confused, tired eyes. Jessica Thompson, the night receptionist, glanced up from her computer screen and immediately wrinkled her nose. She exchanged a look with Roberto, who was already walking over with an expression of barely concealed annoyance. "Excuse me, sir," Roberto said in his practiced professional voice, though his tone carried an edge. "Are you lost? This is a five-star establishment." The man looked at Roberto and began speaking rapidly in what sounded like Mandarin Chinese. His voice was urgent, almost desperate, and he kept pointing toward the street and then at his empty wrist where a watch should have been. "I'm sorry, but we don't understand," Jessica called out from behind the desk, not bothering to hide her impatience. "Do you speak English?" The stranger continued speaking in Mandarin, his voice growing more frustrated. He opened his leather bag and showed them that it was completely empty, then made gestures suggesting something was missing. Roberto sighed dramatically. "Look, sir, if you're looking for a homeless shelter, there's one about 10 blocks north of here. This hotel has a strict dress code and requires advance reservations." "Maybe he's lost," Jessica whispered loudly enough for the man to hear. "Or maybe he's having some kind of episode. Should we call security?" The man seemed to understand their dismissive tone even if he couldn't follow their words. His shoulders sagged, and he looked around the lobby with growing desperation. He tried again, speaking slower this time, pointing repeatedly at the front desk and then at the street. From the service corridor, Isabella Rodriguez emerged with her cleaning cart. She had been working as a night janitor at the Grand Palace for 3 years, invisible to most guests and staff alike. Her grandmother had immigrated from Taiwan decades ago, and Isabella had grown up listening to Mandarin conversations at family dinners. She immediately recognized the man's language and understood his distress. He wasn't asking for a room or causing trouble. He was asking if anyone had turned in a briefcase, a very important briefcase that he had accidentally left in a taxi. Isabella paused, watching Roberto and Jessica's increasingly rude behavior. The man was clearly educated and well-spoken in his native language, despite his disheveled appearance. Something about his dignified bearing, even in his obvious distress, told her there was more to this story. "Sir," Roberto was saying, his voice growing louder and more condescending, "you need to leave now, or I'll have to call security. This is not appropriate." The stranger's face flushed with embarrassment and frustration. He bowed slightly, a gesture of respect that went completely unnoticed by the hotel staff, and turned toward the door. Isabella made a decision that would change everything. She quietly pushed her cart to the side and approached the group. "Excuse me," she said softly. Roberto turned, surprised to see the night janitor inserting herself into the situation. "Isabella, please return to your duties. We're handling this." But Isabella ignored him and looked directly at the stranger. In careful but clear Mandarin, she said, "Sir, are you looking for something you lost? A briefcase, perhaps?" The man's entire demeanor changed instantly. His eyes widened with relief and gratitude, and he responded quickly in Mandarin, explaining that he had indeed left his briefcase in a taxi after arriving from the airport. It contained extremely important documents, and he had been going to every hotel in the area asking if the taxi driver had perhaps turned it in. Isabella nodded and turned to the stunned hotel staff. "He's not asking for a room or causing trouble. He accidentally left his briefcase in a taxi and is checking with hotels to see if the driver might have turned it in. He's been to 5 other hotels already." Roberto's face went through several shades of red. You speak Chinese? Mandarin, yes. My grandmother taught me. Isabella turned back to the man and asked him in Mandarin to describe the briefcase and provide any details about the taxi company. As the stranger provided detailed information about a black leather briefcase with his initials and described the taxi as a yellow cab with a specific company logo, Isabella realized this was no ordinary lost luggage situation. The man's precise way of speaking and his obvious education suggested he was someone important, despite his current disheveled state. The mystery was about to deepen in ways none of them could imagine. The revelation and transformation. Isabella spent the next 20 minutes on the phone with 3 different taxi companies while Vincent Chen waited patiently in the lobby. Roberto and Jessica watched from a distance, whispering among themselves and shooting occasional glances at the unlikely pair. Golden City Taxi, Isabella said into the phone, speaking English now. Yes, I'm calling about a briefcase left in one of your vehicles about 2 hours ago. Black leather with the initials VC. She paused, listening intently. You do? Wonderful. Yes, we'll be right there to collect it. Vincent, his face lit up when Isabella turned to him and explained in Mandarin that his briefcase had been found. The taxi driver had indeed turned it into the company's dispatch office, hoping someone would call looking for it. I'll drive you there, Isabella offered, then hesitated. She looked down at her janitor's uniform and then at her old Honda Civic keys. Although my car isn't very fancy, Vincent smiled for the first time since entering the hotel. In Mandarin, he told her that kindness was worth more than any luxury, and that he would be honored to ride with someone who had shown him such respect. Roberto overheard Isabella making arrangements to leave and quickly intervened. Isabella, you can't just leave your shift to drive around some random stranger. You have responsibilities here. Mr. Martinez, Isabella said quietly, this gentleman has been treated poorly enough for one evening. I'm going to help him retrieve his belongings, and then I'll return to finish my work. Something in her tone made Roberto step back. In 3 years, he had never heard Isabella speak with such quiet authority. The taxi company's office was only 15 minutes away. During the drive, Vincent told Isabella about his long flight from Beijing and how exhausted he had been when he arrived. He had dozed off in the taxi and forgotten his briefcase when he got out at the hotel. He thanked her repeatedly for being the only person willing to help him. When they arrived at the dispatch office, the night manager handed over the black leather briefcase after Vincent showed his identification. Isabella couldn't help but notice that his ID showed an address in one of the city's most exclusive neighborhoods. Back in her car, Vincent carefully opened the briefcase. Isabella caught a glimpse of official-looking documents with corporate letterheads and what appeared to be legal papers with many signatures. Vincent's relief was visible as he checked through the contents. Everything is here, he said in Mandarin, then switched to surprisingly fluent English. Miss Rodriguez, I cannot thank you enough. You have saved me from a very serious problem. Isabella was startled. You speak English? Vincent smiled sheepishly. I do, but when I'm very tired or stressed, I revert to my native language. It's been a very long day, and the treatment I received at your hotel made me quite upset. I'm sorry if I caused confusion. You don't need to apologize, Isabella said firmly. The way they treated you was wrong, regardless of what language you speak. When they returned to the Grand Palace Hotel, Vincent asked Isabella to wait in the lobby while he made a phone call. He stepped outside and spent several minutes speaking quietly into his phone in English. Through the glass doors, Isabella could see his entire posture change. He stood straighter, his voice became more authoritative, and his tired expression was replaced by one of calm confidence. When Vincent returned, he was no longer the disheveled, confused man who had stumbled in earlier. He walked directly to the front desk where Roberto and Jessica were still on duty. Good evening, Vincent said in perfect English. I believe there's been a misunderstanding tonight. Roberto looked up, clearly not recognizing the man who had been in his lobby just an hour earlier. "I'm sorry, sir. Do we have a reservation for you?" Vincent smiled politely and reached into his briefcase. He pulled out a folder and placed it on the counter. "My name is Vincent Chen. I am the new majority shareholder of the Grand Palace Hotel chain, as of yesterday's board meeting. These are the documents confirming the acquisition." The color drained from Roberto's face. Jessica dropped her pen and stared at the official papers spread across the counter. "You see," Vincent continued calmly, "I came here tonight for an unannounced inspection of the property. What I found was most enlightening. I was treated with disrespect and nearly turned away, despite clearly needing assistance. However, I also discovered something wonderful." He turned to Isabella, who was standing nearby with her cleaning cart, still processing what she was hearing. "Miss Rodriguez, would you please join us?" Vincent asked. Isabella approached hesitantly, still in disbelief about the sudden turn of events. Miss Rodriguez demonstrated exactly the kind of hospitality and cultural sensitivity that this hotel chain should be known for, Vincent announced. She showed kindness to a stranger, used her language skills to bridge a communication gap, and went above and beyond her duties to help someone in need. Roberto stammered, "Mr. Chen, I had no idea who you were. If I had known—" "Exactly," Vincent interrupted. "You treated me poorly because you judged me by my appearance and assumed I didn't belong here. That tells me everything I need to know about your character and your suitability for management." He turned to Isabella with a warm smile. "Miss Rodriguez, I would like to offer you the position of Guest Relations Manager with a focus on cultural services. This hotel needs someone who understands that hospitality means treating every person with dignity and respect." Isabella felt the world spinning around her. "Mr. Chen, I'm just a janitor. I don't have management experience or formal training in hospitality." "You have something more valuable," Vincent replied. "You have empathy, integrity, and the ability to see people as human beings rather than judging them by their appearance or circumstances. Those qualities cannot be taught in any school." As the night progressed, Vincent met with the hotel owner, Mr. Franklin, who arrived within an hour of being called. Roberto was immediately suspended pending a full review of his conduct, while Jessica was required to attend sensitivity training. Isabella stood in the same lobby where she had been invisible just hours earlier, now wearing a name tag that read Guest Relations Manager and holding the keys to an office on the second floor. Vincent shook her hand before leaving. "Thank you for reminding me that there are still good people in the world who choose kindness over judgment. This hotel is fortunate to have you." As Isabella locked up her cleaning cart for the last time, she reflected on how a single act of compassion had changed everything. She thought about her grandmother, who had always taught her that treating others with respect was the most important lesson in life. The Grand Palace Hotel would never be the same, and neither would Isabella Rodriguez. Sometimes the most extraordinary changes begin with the simplest acts of human decency.